The Herzl 100 started on June 6, 2026. I posted 100 Herzl artifacts in 100 days on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. In this video, you will see numbers 29 to 20 in the countdown towards number 1. What I am holding is a metal plaque of Theodor Herzl made by the artist Ivan Source. And what's unique and special about this particular plaque is who owned it. I have here a certificate that shows that this was owned by the American scientist Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein himself was a supporter of Zionism and a supporter of Herzl's dream. In the 1920s, he was a fundraiser, not full-time, but he worked to help raise funds for the Keren Hayesod, the Palestine Foundation Fund. Now it's called the Keren Hayesod, the United Israel Appeal. But the Palestine Foundation Fund raised money to build electrical power plants to help fund what was then called the Palestine Philharmonic Orchestra, now the Israel Philharmonic, to build infrastructure, to settle immigrants. So Albert Einstein came to America with Chaim Weizmann and Zev Jabotinsky in the 1920s. This plaque is from 1922, so from around this time. Albert Einstein was also offered the opportunity to be the president of the state of Israel in 1952 after the first president, Chaim Weizmann, sadly passed away. And Einstein turned down the opportunity. I guess he preferred to live in New Jersey, where he was at Princeton. But after he passed away, Israel recognized Einstein by including him on a 5 lira banknote. And this particular banknote was issued in 1968. So we have Herzl connected to Albert Einstein, connected to the dream of a Jewish state, the fundraising for it, because dreams don't get actualized simply by waving a magic wand. They need funding and capital, as you've heard many times throughout the hashtag Herzl 100. And the contribution of Albert Einstein to Zionism, to the cause of science, and to humanity was recognized by the state of Israel by including him on this banknote. What I am holding is an important piece of both Zionist memorabilia and Americana. This large print of Theodor Herzl was made by the Kurz and Allison Company of Chicago. And I know that because you can see in the corner here, it says Kurz and Allison, Chicago. Kurz and Allison, that's Alexander Allison and Louis Kurz, had a company in Chicago between 1880 and 1907. And they were most well known for their Civil War images. And from time to time, they made other images of natural disasters, Abraham Lincoln, religious figures, and at some point, they decided to do this portrait of Herzl. It had to be sometime before 1907 because the firm dissolved in 1907. So why would a company who is most well known for making prints of Civil War battle scenes do a large portrait of Herzl? And the best understanding I have is that these two businessmen printed things that had a demand for them. So this means that in the Chicago area, or in the United States more broadly, in the early 1900s, there was a demand for portraits of Theodor Herzl, which shows that there was an early connection between Americans and the Zionist movement and the work of Theodor Herzl. As Jewish people came to the Golden Land to build their new future, a future of freedom and opportunity in the golden shores of the United States, they were also thinking about their brethren in Europe and also thinking about how to more generally improve the future for all Jewish people. And so they went out and bought portraits such as this, made by an American art printing company. This is so unique and rare that it is included in the hashtag Herzl100. What I am holding are two pins that are bookends of one story. This pin is the pin worn by members of the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society in Vienna at the time of Herzl's death. He died in Vienna in 1904 at the age of 44. And his death was a national tragedy, a tragedy for a nation, the Jewish people. Even though the state didn't exist, the nation did. And so these people in the burial society were responsible for Herzl's burial in July of 1904. Herzl wrote in his will that when the Jewish state that he envisioned is created, he wants to be reburied there. So when the state of Israel was proclaimed in 1948, which was the fulfillment of his vision, and at the time of independence, there was a lot to do. There was a war of independence to fight. There were hundreds of thousands of survivors in the displaced persons camps in Europe that had to come. There were Jews in Arab lands who were evicted and had to come. There was a country to build. But it took 1 year. And in August of 1949, Herzl's last wish was fulfilled. And he was buried in Jerusalem on what became known as Mount Herzl in August of 1949. And the honor guard at his funeral, as his remains were taken from Vienna, flown to Israel, and then taken up to Jerusalem, wore pins such as this one. And on the pin, and it was made by a famous Israeli metalworker, Shmuel Kretschmer. And on it, it has the phrase from the book of Genesis, V'ha'altem et atzmoti mizeh, you shall carry my bones from here. And this was Joseph's request of his sons, because Joseph died in Egypt, and he requested that his sons rebury him in the Holy Land, in the land of Israel, when they returned, which they did with the Exodus from Egypt led by Moses. So Herzl requested the same, and his remains were taken to Jerusalem, where he lies on Mount Herzl, with an evolving, growing, modern democratic country surrounding him. What I am holding is a very small metal plaque of Theodor Herzl. And this plaque is special because it was made by the Pal Bell Company. Pal Bell is a company that was created by the artist Maurice Ascalon. Maurice Ascalon was a metal worker. He was an artist. He developed a system to make metal look green. And this was used in the very early days of Israel on Jewish ritual objects like Hanukkah menorahs, Sabbath candlesticks, because it gave a kind of antique look, which people associated with the land of Israel, the ancient homeland of the Jewish people. So Maurice Ascalon created this company, and there are many, many Paul Bell items, ashtrays, all kinds of things, and there are huge collecting groups who focus on Paul Bell. I focus on Herzl, so I only have this one Paul Bell piece. But I know Maurice Ascalon because he was involved in creating this piece of art, which was outside the Jewish Palestine Pavilion at the 1939 World's Fair in New York City. These three 14-feet characters. And it was the scholar, the laborer, and the toiler of soil. And it was his vision for what the Jewish state would look like. Scholarship, agriculture, and industry. And this particular piece of art stood in front of was above the entrance to the pavilion. And in this particular picture, there is a portrait of or a bust of Theodor Herzl, the one that was made by Borchardt, which we talked about earlier in the Herzl 100. This is an example of always communicating the vision, the desire for the creation of the state of Israel. And one of the ways it continues to be shown, there is a company called Piece of History that is creating Zionist action figures. Of course, I'm particular to the Herzl one, but there are 50, 60 or so, which shows that there were so many different people who were involved in the creation of the state of Israel and its continued existence, and hopefully its desire and continued desire in working towards peace. So from one artist 50, 80 years ago to art today, Herzl continues to be recognized and remembered. What I'm holding is the rare Herzl piece that combines a Spanish sailing ship, the holiday of Hanukkah, and Theodor Herzl. This is a Chanukiah, which is used on the holiday of Hanukkah, which commemorates the rededication of the temple around 160 before the Common Era, so some 2,200 years ago, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. So this is a Chanukiah. The 8 candles go here, and the shamash, the lighting candle, goes here. It's also a Spanish galleon ship with a square sail, and these were used by the Spanish between the 1500s and the 1800s, and on it is Herzl. So you may ask, why does Herzl appear on a Spanish sailing ship, Chanukiah? This item was made shortly after Israel's independence in 1948, and it reflects the return, mostly by ship, of Jewish survivors of the Holocaust from the displaced persons camps in Europe. They were coming home. Obviously, they didn't come home on Spanish galleon ships, but they did come home. And so this is representative of one of the purposes of the State of Israel, as envisioned by Herzl and as enshrined by Israeli law, that Jews have someplace to go, whether they come by ship, by plane, walk, or any other which way. The point of the State of Israel, as envisioned by Herzl, is the Jewish people should be safe with a place to go home. A home is a place you go where they have to let you in. And the State of Israel is that home for the Jewish people. In creating that home, Herzl never intended that it should come at the cost of other people. So that is something that still needs to be worked through and clarified and made better for all. But this particular item, the ship and Herzl, which is used to celebrate Hanukkah, combines many aspects of Jewish tradition and the history of the State of Israel and Zionism in particular, and that's why it is included in the hashtag Herzl100. What I am holding is a very rare and delicate newspaper. It is from Yom Hamedinah, the Day of the State, which is May 14th, 1948. This one-page newspaper, which was a joint edition of all of the newspapers in Israel at the time, was issued at 4:30 p.m. on Friday, May 14th, 1948, 30 minutes after David Ben-Gurion declared the State of Israel into existence. And its headline, Ha'am Machriz al Medinat Yisrael, the nation declares the State of Israel. And of course, there is a picture of Herzl on the front page, because it was Herzl's vision that began the process that led to the creation of the State of Israel a short 50 years or so after he first wrote down his idea in The Jewish State, his book. It also says under Herzl's picture that the white paper has been declared null and void. The white paper was the British law put in place in 1939 that limited immigration to Palestine, which a portion of which became the state of Israel, at precisely the time where the Jews of Europe needed a place to go because they had no other place to go. So after the Declaration of Independence, the provisional government got together and their first law was to wipe out the white paper. But very interesting, if you look on the back, it talks about the battles that were raging already on Independence Day, before Independence Day, the fight for the state of Israel to allow it to survive and not to be essentially killed at its birth. Those battles were raging on the date of independence, and in fact, before the date of independence. Earlier in the day on May 14th, about 100 people were killed in not even battle, in a murderous rage. And so this shows you that the state of Israel, its proclamation was glorious, but it was born in battle. The battle continues, unfortunately, and the objective for everyone of goodwill is to see how that battle can finally stop. Behind me here is a piece of art made by the Israeli artist Shalmiev. It is the portrait of Herzl on the balcony in Basel in 1901, but it's made entirely out of Israeli postage stamps with Herzl's image on it. And this is a beautiful piece which is significant in many levels. The very first indication after the proclamation of the State of Israel on Friday, May 14th, 1948, that the sovereign State of Israel was in existence was the sale of postage stamps. When the post office for the new country opened on the Sunday, there were stamps that people could buy, and it is these stamps. And these stamps say Doar Ivri, Hebrew Post, because the stamps had to be printed in secret prior to the state being proclaimed. And all this on the stamps are ancient coins from the land of Israel. And the designer of these stamps wanted to connect the new modern state of Israel, which was issuing postage stamps, with the ancient state of Israel reflected through these ancient coins from the time of the destruction of the temple and the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 1st and 2nd century of the new millennium. So this piece of art is using the indicia of a state, which is postage stamps, to depict the visionary of the state of Israel. Now, Shalmiev, the artist, immigrated to Israel from Eastern Europe to start a life anew, a glorious life making beautiful art, and she is just thrilled with her new life in Israel. Again, reflective of the story of Herzl and Zionism, that Jews should have a place to go. This particular piece of art is from a series of artworks called Putting Our Stamp on History, that tells the history of the state of Israel through artworks made by Shalmiev, made out of postage stamps. But it starts with this one, Herzl, who envisioned the state of Israel, who wrote about it, who worked to make it happen, and 44 years after he died, the state was created and postage stamps for that new state were issued. What I am holding is a most unique postcard from the first Zionist Congress, which Herzl convened and was held in Basel in 1897. We saw this image in the delegate card that was episode 74. Jews praying by the Kotel, and a farmer planting crops. But there were postcards for each of the congresses which had iconic images Herzl wanted to imprint in the minds of the Jewish people the possibility of a Jewish state. It was a total paradigm shift. But what's impressive about this one, what's most unique, is that it's signed by Herzl in Hebrew. Hey Ein Resh Tzadi Lamed. Herzl wrote his autograph in Hebrew. Now, Herzl did not speak Hebrew, but I assume that somebody wrote it out for him and then he copied it. But it was important for Herzl to show that he had knowledge of Hebrew, that writing in Hebrew was important to him. This particular card wasn't actually signed at the first Zionist Congress. There's a date here, 1898. And this was a meeting, I think it was of the organizers of the next conference or a Zionist group. And this postcard came out and people in attendance at that meeting signed it, and Herzl was moved to sign it in Hebrew. A postcard signed by Herzl in Hebrew is a one of one, which makes this most unique item worthy to be included in the hashtag Herzl100. What I'm holding is an amazing poster for a film production on the life of Theodor Herzl that was screened in Latvia in 1925. And this is just a beautiful poster. In Yiddish it says, Der magnificenter Film. And you don't have to be a Yiddish speaker to know that it says it's a magnificent film. And in this film, it shows Herzl's early days, his meeting with the Sultan when he discussed with the Sultan of Turkey the possibility of a charter for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. At the time, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, Palestine was part of the Ottoman Empire, so he negotiated with the Turkish Sultan for a charter. He then visited the land of Israel in 1898 to meet the Kaiser Wilhelm, who was on tour there to discuss his idea. So all of this is captured in this dramatic film about Herzl. Now I have to tell you, I have in my collection many posters for various films about Herzl. He was such a charismatic and important leader that every decade or so there is a new attempt to tell Herzl's story in dramatic films and in documentaries. It's a story worth learning about and worth telling. The Herzl 100 is my attempt to share this story, but at least from the 1920s in Latvia, there have been attempts to share, to communicate, to explain Herzl's dream, the dream for the Jewish people to live safely and securely in our ancestral homeland. So if a Latvian film doesn't do it for you, maybe the Herzl 100 will. And keep your eyes out, because I'm aware of their different projects, films, television projects in production. People are thinking about it because Herzl's story is critical to know and critical to understand. So for all you Latvian film buffs, enjoy this poster. And for just regular Herzl fans, please keep an eye out for more content about Herzl, including the remaining episodes of the hashtag Herzl100. We are now in the final 20 of the Herzl 100, and this particular piece will help to contextualize Herzl's work and his vision for a Jewish state, because this is the March 1946 newsletter called Unsere Stimme, Our Voice. It's the newsletter of the Displaced Persons Camp at Bergen-Belsen. This was a publication made by and for survivors of the Holocaust. And you see on the cover Theodor Herzl, because he gave these people, after having experienced the most devastating, awful period of time that anyone could imagine, they saw Herzl as a person who gave them a vision, the possibility of a better future. And that possibility is apparent in this illustration that is found in this edition. You can see Theodor Herzl's profile in behind. And what we have are survivors still in their concentration camp uniforms. And there's a person holding a flag that says Am Yisrael Chai. And they are marching to the Jewish state. They're marching from their despair, from their captivity, from being displaced people back to a Jewish homeland where they're not displaced anymore, where they are home, where they no longer have to fear because they are Jewish. They're no longer subject to anti-Semitism or persecution and all the suffering that they had. So this gives us an idea, a concrete idea of how important Herzl was in those days and in the days that preceded it, because he was deathly afraid of what would happen to the Jewish people. He wrote about it, and sadly, his greatest fears were more than realized. But these survivors going to the promised land, seeing Herzl in behind as the vision, as the leader, as the inspiration, this is what Herzl brought to the Jewish people. This is the vision that he realized for us. And it's our responsibility to keep that state of Israel in the way that he conceived of it: moral, liberal, democratic, welcoming of the strangers, equal rights for all, a moral society. This is what Herzl wanted for us, and this is what these people were marching to the state of Israel to achieve.